All right, let's expand this discussion now by welcoming Benoit Le Roy, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the SA Water Chamber. Benoit, we really appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Welcome. So, let's first understand from your perspective what the latest current water woes can be attributed to. You and I were in discussion during the festive season where there were a number of promises that water woes were still a manageable issue at the time. Is this still the reality now, though? Dam levels were reportedly at full capacity at some stations due to the recent heavy rains across the country as well.
Yes, hi, Alicia, to the viewers. I've always warned that the situation would escalate exponentially, purely because the system is at a tipping point. And we had these two outages in Mfuleni with the municipal electrical supply system having issues for a period of time, not days. We're talking half a day or a day or so. And that just pushed the system over the edge. Now, if we had 48 hours at least minimum residence time or storage time in the municipal distribution system of Joburg, that issue would have not been as serious as it is now. So it's really the tail wagging the dog. These relatively small incidences are becoming major crises, and we're just not equipped to handle these crises because they're so major. So, the city at the moment is having to shut off reservoirs to try and get them to fill up. And what that does is downstream of the reservoir, the pipes run dry. And when you refill them, if you don't bleed them adequately, which is quite a manually intensive process, you'll end up damaging those pipes, and then that system goes down. So the misery feeds on itself, unfortunately. And, there's no quick fix like a solar panel or battery. This is quite a serious situation, unfortunately.
And I remember we were saying, please be optimistic in December, Benoit, as we started reporting the first water cuts. But delving deeper then, and I know the president made mention of this during his Sonnet address as well, about the current plans to repair or build a critical water infrastructure, Benoit, throughout the country. I want us to focus specifically on the VAL as well as Lesotho water projects. Where are we in terms of progress, especially at VAL, as we do receive the bulk of our supply from there, if you were talking about the fact that we are ill-equipped at this stage?
So it's not a supply side problem from either Rainwater or from the integrated Vaal River system, of which Lesotho Highlands is one of those. So the delays in phase 2 of Lesotho Highlands and the shutdown in phase 1 for maintenance are not contributing to this at all. The Vaal Dam's at 61%, which is our major supply dam. Sterkfontein 10 is over 95, 97%. It's not a supply side issue. It's a distribution issue. So the outages for maintenance that we've had in Lesotho have not affected us. We didn't think they would, but the rains came very late. But we had the reserve in Sterkfontein, and we were a couple of percent away, so a week or two from releasing that. We didn't have to. So and Rainwater is pumping at maximum that it can produce at the moment, and the water's not getting there. So it can only be a hold in the bucket,
All right. And then, Benoit, of course, climate change is another major factor into our future planning as well as resourcing of water. So let's talk about those available avenues to secure this vital resource. Some rural areas whom have never had running water use some streams as well as home catchment systems. But we know this water, including even some from the taps currently, isn't entirely safe for instant usage. Boreholes have also been suggested as another way to bring about an abundance of water in these far-flung areas.
So groundwater is used quite a lot, in actual fact, in the rural areas in southern Africa. So including Lesotho, where I was this week, and in Lesotho, for example, it is at altitude, as you know, but also generally speaking, the groundwater and the spring water is so clean they don't have to treat it, just send it through to the various settlements. So the water's pristine there, but the pollution in in parts of South Africa where we abstract from the ground is starting to affect the groundwater purely because the rivers are polluted. So, there isn't an abundance of water in reality with climate change making it unpredictable. And then what we're doing is we're polluting our rivers and dams, which in itself is reducing the available water at a reasonable quantity. The more polluted it is, the more expensive it is to treat. And, water is expensive as it is, and in the rural areas, affordability is an even bigger issue. So we need to start raising our game. And, I'll say what I said a few years ago, I keep on saying is the talk shops are fine, but we have to do some workshops. And, the master plan talks about 900 billion. So that was 2018. We should have spent 600-700 billion, and we've only committed 140 billion, and that's at a national level. So we are far, far away from really implementing what we know we've got to do. And we see now the symptoms of inaction. It's catching up to us, and it's not very pleasant, unfortunately.
And how dies the situation, Benoit? I mean, there was also the suggestion during SONA, as well as other debates that we've seen the president, as well as members of the GNU, that maybe it is time that the country actually resorted to, you spoke about affordability and talk shops. They were saying it is time the country resorted to private water service providers. Now, this idea was criticized by some as privatization, but what solutions are really needed to resolve our current water woes?
So one must separate, because automatically folk think that as soon as the private sector is involved, we call it private sector participation, for very specific reasons, think it's privatized. It's not. Privatization is not allowed in South Africa unless we change the constitution and the acts that emanate out of that. So the water resources and reserve, etc., belongs to the people of South Africa and the custodians, Department of Water Sanitation. So we're not talking privatization. What we are not going to get away with is not using private sector funding and capacity, because A, we don't have the capacity. Yes, we do have a lot of talk capacity, but not work capacity. And also it's quite a complex task. So government, even if it was quite capacitated, would still need private sector involvement. This is a normal trend. But the private sector does have the funds to in fact do this. But the highly politicized environment makes it quite difficult for the private sector to enter this. So the private sector is waiting. And it will wait X amount of time and will move its money to other places if it's not found to be amenable over here. So I think it's going to happen. And there are quite a few, let's say, RFIs, so requests for information and proposals out there, and the appetite is quite reasonable from the private sector, but we won't privatize it. That will need a constitutional change, and I don't think that will happen very easily, but we need to put to use the private sector funds and savings, but in a secure manner, and this is what is really needed, and that means that government really has to change its policies and its terms and conditions and bankability in the metros, for example, here, quite seriously, because the metros, apart from Cape Town, are not easily bankable. So a lot of work is being done, but it is very slow. And until that work's done, not one rand will flow into this infrastructure. And the fiscus, we know, is very tight, and it's getting tighter. So there's no big savior or silver bullet coming from the national fiscus. That's definitely not going to happen. We're dreaming if we think that's going to happen. So we've got to work together, and this is exactly what we're trying to do. And we have a lot of tools available to do this, but we're somehow stuck in the third industrial revolution, not wanting to go into the fourth, and now we're busy working in the fifth and sixth in the water sector globally. So we've got a nice opportunity to catch up.